coffee room. All right, Ken's ready to go.
There.
FT Senior Insider and host of Fair Territory, Ken Rosenthal, with us right now from an undisclosed location in Nashville, the country of the Opryland Hotel. Ken, great to have you on. Thank you for saving the winter meetings with not one but two stories late last night, since there hasn't been really any news in the past 24 hours. So let's start with your thoughts on Shohei Ohtani visiting Dunedin, Florida, and this show actually being closer to where the action is than where you are right now.
Well, it was really interesting to hear this yesterday, and all day long it seemed like something was going on. Ross Atkins rescheduled his availability for an undisclosed location. He wouldn't tell anybody where it was. John Schneider's availability was rescheduled last Friday from Monday to Tuesday. And then we learned that Nesbilello, Shohei Ohtani's agent, was not in the state of Tennessee. And then it was just a matter of finding out where they were. And it turns out they were in Dunedin at the Blue Jays complex. At least that is what I heard, and that's what I reported, that is where the meeting is believed to have taken place. So this obviously establishes the Jays as a serious player. They were a serious player before. We've been talking about them for weeks. But this is a different level. And when a guy visits a spring training complex, that's probably to make sure he's comfortable before advancing the negotiations to another level. Now, don't get me wrong. That does not mean the Jays are the front runner. It does not mean anything at all. This is free agency. Anything can happen. The Dodgers are still perceived by many in the industry to be the leading team for Shohei Ohtani. The Giants are in there. The Angels are in there. The Cubs, to a varying extent, it seems, are in there as well. So I don't know that last night ultimately, or yesterday, ultimately will prove decisive in this process, but it was an interesting development to be sure.
Is the excitement of this greater than the chance of this? Or is the boredom of the Dodgers being the team that's going to sign him, which we've said since they didn't sign anybody last year to any big contracts, is that what we're trying to avoid as a baseball industry?
Eric, I don't know that there's any master plan in place as a baseball industry. Each team is vying for Ohtani. And the perception of how it goes down and where he went will be based on the eye of the beholder, right? If you're a Dodger fan, you're going to be happy if he goes to the Dodgers. Likewise, Blue Jays. The only outcome that many fans, in my opinion, outside of Anaheim would frown on would be if he goes back to the Angels. That would be something where people would say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought you were about winning. That's what you were intending to do. That would be surprising and a little bit deflating, I would expect. But any other outcome, to me, is interesting. And obviously here the number is going to be really interesting as well. What ultimately are the contract terms? Is it $500 million? Is it $600 million? Where are the opt-outs? How is it all going to work? None of this is known yet, and eventually at some point in the near future we will know.
And Ken, yeah, I'll double down. I think it would be devastating for the sport if he returns to the Angels, because right now they're not in a good spot roster-wise. The best player in the sport, one of the most unique ever, needs to be more on a national stage or international stage and be in the postseason too. Angels' chances coming up this year are not great. So on Ohtani and his decision looming, hopefully soon, is that why there has been just about nothing coming out of Nashville besides really that Jared Kelenic trade, which happened on Sunday? Do you now think, talking to others, that he's truly holding up the market even for players like Bellinger, a Juan Soto trade, some of the, Yamamoto and some of the other big starters? And I would say even like the mid-tier, like Eduardo Rodriguez, will any of these guys get going, or is everyone just waiting for this big decision?
Scott, absolutely, this is holding things up. Even on levels below where you just mentioned, the relief market in some cases, certain relievers are being held up. And I know fans sometimes get upset by this kind of thing. It is not the case in other sports, the salary cap sports, which have a much more compressed free agency. But when I hear teams complain about, well, Ohtani's got to make a decision because we got to get going here. Sorry. Hold on a second.
Jeez.
No, this is good.
Never mind. It's nothing.
Okay.
When I hear
You
clubs
jump us.
complain-
If it's
who
good.
was it?
If it's good, Ken,
It
you
was
jump
Brian
us.
Cashman. I can't
Not
answer
related
this,
to
nothing.
baseball.
Don't worry about it.
When I hear clubs complain, when I hear agents complain about a player or a team holding up the market, sorry, that team, that player has every right to hold up the market. But if you're asking if all of these dominoes are linked to this one and maybe the Soto trade as well and Yamamoto, yes, those three things are the big ones. And they're all interconnected in different ways. And certainly once one of them, and certainly 2 or 3 of them go down, you're going to see a lot more movement.
So a lot of fans in the chat today asking what we can do to fix this, because this is not the first time this has happened with the winter meetings. We've had many duds now in the past. I know sometimes you get like Boris just saying, all right, all my clients going for it right now, but often it's been like this for one player holding it up. Is there anything we can do to change this? I know the winter meetings aren't just about this, but this is a big showcase for the sport. And right now, nothing is happening. Do we try and tweak a trade deadline, or would one side or the other never go for something like that?
Well, it's complicated, and it's complicated because there is no salary cap, and the union would never want a signing deadline because that would limit the market, restrict it in a certain way. It wouldn't be totally free. You'd have a deadline. What I've always thought would make sense would be maybe a trade deadline at the end of the winter meetings. Now, this would probably be complicated and raise some questions along the lines of the ones I just mentioned, but if you have that, a trade deadline at the end of the winter meetings, then free agency would take off after that, and you'd be assured of action at the winter meetings. The way the sport is set up now, you're never assured of action at the winter meetings. Sometimes it happens. Remember the one year that Garrett Cole and Rendon and Strasburg signed right away? They were all Boris clients. And even last year, there were some things happening. Aaron Judge happened at the winter meetings last year and a number of other signings. But this is the kind of thing, what we're seeing now, that takes place once in a while. When Harper and Machado were free agents, we saw it drag into February. It's not healthy for the sport. And frankly, for Shohei Ohtani, it would have been, I would imagine, for CAA, his agency, the ultimate to have this announced here, maybe have him introduced here, but they're going at their own pace, which they have every right to do. That's free agency. So I don't see it happening or change happening anytime soon.
Ken, first of all, Ohtani would have got up there and wouldn't have said anything. So, there's no need to have it at the winter meetings. They would have been, here's Shohei. He would have put his jersey on and walked off because he never talked. So
Technology error.
Technology, yeah, he could have zoomed. Oh, wait, the technology broke. Sorry, we can't talk to him. The mic doesn't work. You can't yell loud enough. But besides that, you talked about a trade deadline. The Soto trade is the other big move that everyone's waiting for, right? And we talked about a little bit earlier, has there ever been a team that needs to make this trade more than the Yankees do right now? Because not only because of their reputation, but now the fans are chiming in, and the fans are like, Soto or death to Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner, right? What other teams are involved? Because I've seen some fringe teams kind of on the outside, but it's always seemed like it's been Yankees or bust, Yankees or bust. And then in your article, you mentioned about Dave Martinez, and people are talking about Dave Martinez saying like, oh, he's the perfect fit for New York. He can handle it fine. So do the Yankees like a done deal?
Not a done deal. And the Blue Jays are a team that has been interested. Russ Atkins went on MLB Network Radio this morning. He's the Blue Jays GM, and said, yes, they could take on a 1-year, $30 million player in a trade. It's not something that they're ruling out. I don't know how realistic that would be for Toronto, but that is what he said publicly. And for Juan Soto, there are other teams, I am sure, in the mix as well. And I wrote today about the Padres' side of this, why they would drive such a hard bargain here. And basically, you're talking about a player who's on a Hall of Fame track, who is going to be extremely motivated next season because it's his walk year and he wants a $500 million plus contract in free agency. And he is one of the great hitters of our time. So from the Padres' perspective, they have every right to ask for a high price, even though there's just 1 year of control remaining. And if you're the Yankees, you're going to try to keep the price as minimal as possible. So it's your basic stare down, and these kinds of things happen all the time. I think I refer to it as standard negotiating ploys, one way or the other. Does he end up a Yankee? It almost does seem, AJ, like you're right, like they cannot afford not to get him, but you never know. And certainly there are other teams involved, and if the Padres get a better deal somewhere else, Cubs, Seattle, I don't know. I could name a number of teams.
Seattle. You're funny, Ken. Seattle. That was a funny. You're funny, Seattle.
I'm just saying.
That was a good one.
But, all right. Obviously, the Yankees are not the only team in the mix.
Okay,
You're
fair.
Right,
I mean, listen, Juan Soto's a great.
Seattle's not been serious on big money, guys. That's true.
Yeah, they're trading them all away because 54%. But that's a whole different thing. So the question is for me, and we had this argument last week, I think. Juan Soto turned down $440 million. Can he beat that on the free agent market? Shohei, listen, I know people are going to say Shohei get $500 or $600 million. But Shohei is just such a different animal with the marketing in Japan. But can Juan Soto get $500 million if he hits the free agent market? And if the Yankees or whoever trades for him, will that trade be contingent on them being able to sign him to an extension before that trade is finalized?
No, I would be surprised if that happened, AJ, because one, that gums up the process, makes the trade more difficult, and two, the entire industry knows Scott Boras is not going to sign Juan Soto to an extension. Not going to negotiate with one team when a year from now he can negotiate with 30. That is generally what he prefers to do. People might not like it, but it has proven to be a successful strategy in many cases. When you ask, can he get $500 million? I absolutely believe he can because of his age. Going to be a free agent going into his age 26 season. That is awfully young for a free agent. It's 5 years younger than Judge was, right? And Judge got the number he got, 360. Shohei, we expect, is going to be over 500. So, yes, $500 million is realistic. Now, how many years? You could spread it over a number of years, right, to lower the average annual value. But Juan Soto is going to be a coveted free agent at this time next year. There doesn't seem to be much doubt about that.
And he's probably having a great time looking at what's going on in this free agent period where Ohtani might get to 600. Yamamoto price seems to keep rising right now. So last two here. One is quick, if there's anything on Yamamoto besides the fact that maybe his price keeps going up and we all feel pretty confident that he's going to do these in-person meetings maybe and then sign after that so people can kind of stop asking about him this week.
Yes, I don't expect it will happen here for sure. And by Christmas, yes, it's certainly possible. He's not going to need the entire 45 days. What's interesting about him is the market is extremely hot for him. And the reason for that is his age, 25 years old. You hardly ever see a starting pitcher come onto the market at that age. In fact, it's so rare I cannot remember another one this young being out there. That, in fact, with his combined with his accomplishments, really makes it a unique free agency. 3 straight versions of the Japanese Cy Young Award, 3 straight MVP awards. This guy is the belle of the ball, so to speak. And I wrote earlier this week, I believe, that the initial expectation was $200 million, but now the expectation is it's going to be considerably higher than that.
So, Ken, we'll finish with this one, and you mentioned it briefly. I read this from your report. We talked about it a lot yesterday with the Mariners trade with the Braves. Is that true that they had some initial conversations with the Rays, but they weren't in the financial situation at the time? Because I read that, or at least I'm paraphrasing a little bit from your report. Arozarena due to make $9 million next year. Paredes due to make $3 million next year. We go from a few months ago saying, can the Mariners shell out $50 million for Shohei Ohtani? To can the Mariners afford Arozarena and Paredes for $12 million next year? Is it really that dire? And the question that I ask is, half kidding, are the Mariners broke?
I did report that, Scott, but let me give you the context. I did report that early this offseason there was a conversation that took place between the Mariners and the Rays, and at the time the Mariners told the Rays, yeah, we can't go there financially with some of these guys, but this is why they've cleared so much money. Remember, they did not offer Teoscar Hernandez a qualifying offer. That's $20 million that they didn't even float out there. Then they traded Eugenio Suarez, along with the trade that they made the other night with Evan White involved and Marco Gonzalez involved, along with Jared Kelenic. Combined in future commitments, that saved $42 million. Not all of it this year, some of it in the years beyond. They did send $4.5 million in cash over, so really the ultimate savings is about $37.5 million. That is a place now where they can go explore some of these things that you're talking about there. And when I really would interpret that as is, guys, when we're talking to the Rays, we can't do this right now. We've got to do some things to clear money before we can get serious. So it's not that they don't have any money and that they're broke, but they are under restraints by ownership. There's no question about that. It's painfully obvious. And Cal Raleigh talked about it at the end of the season, and I know Mariners executives and people with the team got upset. Guess what? He told the truth. And he told the truth about a franchise that you would think, after finally ending its 21-year postseason drought in 2022, would have used that as momentum, and instead they have stayed stuck in neutral.
Yeah, it's a travesty. And we had Cal on the other day, and he was like, Dipoto probably didn't mean the 54% thing. So, yeah, it's tough. They're not going to hear the end of it until they do things. So, Ken, appreciate the time. Get back after it, and we'll talk to you again soon. Enjoy the meetings.
Thanks, guys.
Ken Rosenthal with us from Nashville, and also a lot more on Fair Territory, which is out there for the world to experience right now on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. As you can see, a number of topics, including some that we just got updates on from Ken. And again, I want to remind everyone that we are going to be doing another FT Live special edition a little bit later tonight. The owners and the GMs are on the clock. They have 4 hours to get some trades and signings done. We'll be back on at 6:30 Eastern. We're still going for a little, just reminding everyone. Also, to use the discount code FOUL, F-O-U-L, for 20% off your first order at TizaEnergy.com. Go check it out for an energy boost. And also, if you're a dipper out there, stop doing that. Tobacco is bad for you. Check out Tiza instead. Yeah,